Welcome to zebracode.io, and this is lesson 3. We're looking at a demo of how to navigate the command line, and in this demo we're going to be focusing on the Windows environment, and the next demo we'll look at the Linux environment. So these are a review of the basic commands we studied when we learned the basic concepts of this lesson, and now let's go ahead and navigate the file structure with the Windows Explorer, and this is probably the way we're most comfortable doing it, and then we're going to use the command line. So here I'm going to create a new folder, and I'm going to create that folder. You can choose any place you want, and we want to create a folder called HW. So that's HW is going to stand for homework. Now within this folder, I'm going to create another folder or directory, and I'm going to call this lesson 3. So I'm going to put all of my scripts here for lesson 3 within this folder here, within homework and then within lesson 3. Now let's create a new file, and in this case I can just create a text document, and I can call this anything. For example, I'm just going to create a generic test file here, or text file. And so we get an idea of how to work with files using this graphical user interface, this Windows Explorer. But let's try using the command line. So I'm going to type in CMD here. I'm going to open my command prompt, and let's do the exact same thing or similar. Let's maybe delete some of these files. So let's go ahead. First, I can go into my directory and I can do a dir, and I can see all of the lists here. Now I can cd, this is change directory, into my documents folder, and I can do a dir. And now I can see that I have my homework. This is HW folder that I created here previously, and I can cd or change directories into that HW directory. And now I can see lesson 3, and if I cd into lesson 3, I can see that one file that I created by doing a dir. So cd allows me to change directories into a folder, and cd ... allows me to go up a directory. Now if I want to delete this file, I use del, and I spell out the entire name, including the extension. I deleted it, and now I go dir again, and I can see the results that no longer, that file testing.txt is no longer there. So if I wanted to, I can continue to make directories or delete directories using those commands we looked at before, and I can also cd space ... and that brings me up a directory to the homework folder. It brings me out from lesson 3 up to the homework folder. I can do the same thing. cd space ... and I can go up a directory into the documents folder. So this is just a different way to explore those basic commands of cd space ... and dir, just to see where I am, allows me just to navigate up and down the directory. So let's go cd into the homework folder. I can see this, and I can see my lesson 3, and I can cd now directly within the folder. I'm now within lesson 3. I'm in that folder, and I can actually create a file here if I want to. I can just go notepad, and notepad is going to, and put hello.py. So this is going to actually create a file using notepad into this directory, and it gives me a default prompt here. Do you want to create the directory? And I could say yes. And here I've just created a file here, and I can write some basic Python code. Hello, let's print hello. So this is going to be a one-line code stored in a file, in a .py file called hello.py, and I can now do a dir, and I can see that file we just created, hello.py, and it's there. And if I want to actually run it, I just go Python, and this is going to call Python. It's going to actually execute this .py file. That's where all my code is, and it actually runs hello here. So this is going to take a little while to get used to, but it's actually quite simple, and we can create files, we can edit files, we can navigate to these files, we can execute the files using Python space and then calling the hello.py file or whatever it is. The easiest way to edit and navigate to files using the Windows environment is use idle. Idle is a utility that comes when you download Python onto our Windows environment, and we can simply click the idle, and we get this environment here. Now notice by default it opens up to the Python command prompt, and we can type as we have below, as we've done before, is to create a simple command and execute our Python code from here. But what is better is to go to the file and open up a file. We can open up a .py file, or we can create a .py file using this idle editor. So I'm going to go ahead and under file and open, I'm going to open that hello.py file I created. I notice it's within my homework folder, within lesson 3, and here I can actually open it up and edit it here right using a Python editor. And now I've written this, the code that was before was print hello, and I can edit this file and I can add another print line here. And we're going to go ahead and execute and run the script. Now there are several ways to run the script. We'll talk about that in a minute, but here we've updated our code. And now we've updated our .py file, and we can save it. We can save it here from the file menu bar, or we can hit Control S, and that's another way to save it. And once we save it, we can run it here using this from the run command, hitting F5 or run the module, and that actually runs the code here, right here within our idle environment. But another way, and we're going to be doing this more often, and it's more similar to the bash environment, is we're going to run this from the command prompt, and you should have two windows open. You can have a command prompt, that's where we're going to execute our code, and we can have our idle window open as well, and that's where we're going to edit our code. And here, switching back and forth, we can edit our code and then run it. And to run it, we simply type in, as we did before, Python hello.py. This is going to take Python and execute it, and here we have our 2 lines of code executed. It first prints hello, and then it prints this file was updated using idle. Next, let's create a new file from idle, because this is simply the easiest way to navigate files in the Windows environment. So I go to File and I go New File, and this brings up a blank file. And I can save this wherever I want to, probably within my homework folder, but let's just write some Python code. X equals input, and we're going to prompt the user, enter a number. And this is going to ask the user to enter a number, and it's going to store it with the value x. And initially, again, x is going to be a string value. So then I can take sq. This is a homework problem we've done before. Sq equals integer of x. I'm going to convert that value that the user has entered into a integer. I'm going to multiply it by itself, an integer of x, and then I'm going to print sq, which I stored my variable. Now I've created a brand new file. It's asking me to save it as, and I'm going to save it as, remember, I'm going to save it as square.py. Remember to always do it as a .py file. You have to explicitly set this here as a square.py file, and that's very important because all of our Python runs within a .py file. And now I've saved it. I have this file. I've created it, and we can go ahead and navigate to it, and we can see that we have our two files here, and our new one, which is called square.py. So if I want to execute this code, I can go to the command prompt, or I can actually simply edit it. There are a lot of things I can do here just using the editor, idle. I can actually run it here within idle, and when I run it, I can actually get enter a number. I enter it 4, and it returns value, the appropriate value 16, which is the number squared. But let's focus on running it from the command prompt, because this is more similar to how we're going to do it within the Linux environment. And so let's do the same thing. I'm in the proper folder here, lesson 3. That's where my file is. I must be in that same file, and I type in Python space square.py. It gives me the prompt to enter a number. I do it, and it returns the square value. If I want to do it again, I can simply hit the up arrow. The up arrow and the down arrows go. It kind of stores a history of all the commands I've used, so I don't have to always retype this. I can use the up arrow and the down arrow from the command prompt, and it just gives me my most recent commands that I've used. So I can just run it again, enter 7 here, and I get 49. So that's a simple tool that makes it a lot faster when you're using the command line. Just remember the up and down arrows, which allow me to just circle through the history of the different commands I've used from the command line recently. So that's a quick introduction of using navigating files from the Windows environment. We learned how to use idle. We can create new files with idle. We can execute them and run them. We can run them also from the command line, and we can delete files. All of those basic commands that we learned about, we can do here from Windows, from the command prompt, and from idle. Go ahead and practice. Look at the homework. This is not complicated at all. It just takes a little while to get used to. So once you do this, you should do this many times over, and practice just the different commands. So here I'm using a remove directory, so I can delete those directories out and delete them. So just practice using those commands and run them through the Windows directory. And then we're going to do the exact same thing, but we're going to be focusing on the Linux bash environment. Again, most of the commands in Linux are identical to Windows, so you can just learn these handful of commands, and that's basically what we'll be focusing on in this course. Learn them both from Windows and from the bash environment. This is zebracode.io.